Thank you, Yves. And just back to the autumn school and open, I felt, I don't know how you feel, but I felt somewhat stupid, I have to say, because I was listening to kind of people that had been working with deliberative democracy, like Jane Suter and company for years and years and years and years. And I was like, every other word, I was kind of under the table, I was trying to Google them. It's like, so what does randomly actually mean? Because it's not my language. And so it's just that sometimes, at least for us, it's been a rather steep kind of mountain to climb, also because in a Danish context, there's a rather poor deliberative tradition. So we have not had that many to lean on. And every time we try to lean on stuff from the UK or from Canada, Australia, it's in English. I mean, just the translation to our own language is actually a bit, what is actually an evidence team? What's the difference between the steering committee and a steward committee? And what is a convener? And all these different metaphors. And I mean, if it would be very helpful, Jane and company, if you were kind of straight in being using the same words from country to country, but you don't. So it's like also a battle whether you ask Peter MacLeod for one definition, you get a different from Yves. And so just to say, if you feel somewhat a bit like dizzy, then I completely get the feeling. We've been there and we're still there very often. So I'm from We Do Democracy as well as Senior, and we're a Copenhagen-based organization. We're a private company, even though our purpose is societal and some would say almost philanthropic. It's still a company. We earn our living from selling what we do and getting paid for it. So also just to say it is possible to do this also without being a philanthropist with a lot of money, and you can actually do this also just as someone making a living from this field. So I've promised Yves to give a very short, we already had a few things on that on Lynetteholm yesterday, but just a few notes on the Lynetteholm case, and then driving from that, I have tried to kind of contextualize a few of the facilitation dilemmas that kind of goes from that kind of polarized, complicated assembly work. And then I have some stuff on facilitation, and I was listening to you guys yesterday. I was thinking, what is actually relevant to you? Because I don't really know you. So I'm just gonna do a quick kind of I'm gonna ask you a few questions to just see where you are. And then I can kind of turn up the volume button or down, you know, on different aspects of what I've prepared. So and this is very important, that this is not a, this is not a beauty contest. This is a curriculum thing. I just try to see where you are. So how many of you have participated, either observing or being in a room where something like deliberation happened? Who has been in the room? I want the hands high. Good. How many of you have been facilitating a workshop? That's a lot. Good. How many of you have been designing a workshop? Running the program? Good. How many of you have been designing something with deliberation? Assembly work? Quite a lot too. Great. Because I kind of think that when you start working with this field, it's easy to think this is a whole new academy of deliberation, and scholars like Yves also like to make it sound very different from the rest of the things we do, but it's not that different. I mean, there's tons of things that are different. I mean, lots of things on legitimacy and arm's length distance and lots of technicalities that are different, but the core of the group process is something you know. It's about getting people into a room, make them feel comfortable, make them work together, create a serious but lighthearted atmosphere where it's possible to wear sneakers and make mistakes and ask questions. And so kind of the group thing of this is something where if you've been working with facilitation or working with as a social worker or as a teacher or as a project manager or change manager, then you have stuff in your backpack that you can use when you step into this. And I've been watching this field, deliberative field, for 10 years and really actively working in the field for 5. And the first 5 years where I was only watching it and reading and kind of thinking how I could bring it to Denmark, I was very much reading kind of stuff that was very research-based, very bright academic stuff on deliberation, which is good. Do read that, please. It's on your coffee table or whatever stuff. Read that stuff. But it's very important to say that the scholar part of this is not necessarily helping you in the practical side of this. So make sure you also learn from practitioners. Make sure you watch and ask and listen and call someone. And when we did our first assembly, I had Peter McLeod from Canada, who's a friend of mine. I was on daily call with him. He was like, oh, I have to do this, then now what? You know, even on our first assembly weekend, I was like calling him like lunch break, our program didn't work, then what to do now? So just to have someone that you can actually lean on when you start working with it on a very, very, very practical, detailed, daily life level, kind of like, what material do I need to pack, and how does a room look, and that live stream thing, when to shut it off, and stuff like that. So the facilitation is also kind of getting into the room and making this go from kind of a palace, a drawing of a palace, and something that's actually working. So just a few things. We are Copenhagen based. We are 10 people. He makes it sound like we're 100, and sometimes it feels like we should be. We are reflected and evidence-based, but we're very much practitioners. We're not researchers. We're not scholars. We've been in this field really actively for 4 years. And we are, I was trying to count yesterday, Senior, but I think it's 13, 14 assemblies at the moment. We either have been facilitating or are preparing for facilitation next year. So, yeah. It basically means that we constantly try to evaluate, we try to look at what is Kelly doing, what is Peter doing, what are they doing at Involve. We try to compare notes, we evaluate what we do, we take a deep interest in kind of our own role in what we do. I mean that we are not blind on the reflection part of our own power of this. I mean the decisions we make that are maybe not that kind of obvious to others. We know that those decisions are in the back of this. So being reflected, evaluated, transparent, conscious in our work is a part of our way to do this. Just a few notes on who we are, because some of you might have heard this or seen it, or just so you know that we also do this. I just made a list on and it's not to brag, it's actually just to say that if you want kind of to lean on someone on some of these issues, then you can call us. And some of this we have in English, some of it we don't. So there's tons of small scale, very local, very specific, narrow assemblies. And you're gonna get this, by the way, this presentation if you need it. But just to say there are very specific design on smaller scale assemblies here that might be helpful. I've been working quite a lot in the Baltic countries. Luckily also, I mean, I was in Estonia in '89 with a youth exchange program on Saaremaa, you know, Bornholm and Saaremaa. I grew up on Bornholm. And I kind of have been here enough to know that some of the things that work in Denmark often also work in Estonia. So there might be some possibilities of transferring parts of what we've done in a Danish context to at least Estonia, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. So just to say that we are in Copenhagen, and we bought this 400 square meters old shit place, a mechanical repair shop that looked really bad 4 years ago, and it's still kind of, if you ask Senior, it still looks kind of bad. But I think it starts looking good. But it's a meeting place and an innovation center for participatory democracy, where 12 organizations are hosted and more than 30,000 participants and guests throughout 22, approximately, and tons of different kind of democracy sector activities, some of them very, very daily life, everyday activism, and some of it very system-based democracy development. So if ever in Copenhagen, please grab us, come by, see the place, and have a deeper chat on some of these things. This is also one of the things we do. Tele and Mayo has been trained as democracy fitness trainers, but that's a whole different story. So, Lynetteholm, how many of you have been to Copenhagen? Oh, that was a lot. See, I'm trying to tell Yves that Copenhagen is the heart of the Nordic region, but he doesn't get it. No. Yeah. It's just trying to move the deliberative terrain a little out of Central Europe, but I'm struggling with it. So Copenhagen, let me see what you, so this is the old inner part of Copenhagen, the medieval city center. Some of you have probably seen the Little Mermaid, maybe, the awful little statue. It's somewhere out here. So this is the old inner harbor, and this is the here is the old naval island where they had the naval facilities, and this is is a possible Lynetteholm project. So as you can see, it's not just a little little sweetie, you know, it's a huge thing that's going to completely change the infrastructure, the biological design of the sea around Copenhagen, and not just for Copenhagen and Denmark, but also for Sweden, and sorry to say, possibly also for the Baltic countries, because it's changing the seawater balance in the Baltic Sea. I'm not proud of that part of it, but my father is a biologist, and I grew up as a really kind of environmental family, so I'm trying not to talk to my father about this project. But so Lynetteholm, just to give you a super short keynote on it, it's the commissioning part is the public city developer called By og Havn, which means city and harbor, and it's owned 95% by the municipality and 5% by the government. So it's like really public owned, but it's driven and also measured on commercial standards. They have to earn money, and the budget have to be in balance, and they have to prove the kind of financial outcome of what they do. So they are publicly owned, but driven like a private company. They are the commissioning part, and that is of course a great part of the difficulty here, because it's rather obvious that the city developing company is not the only one that are making decisions in this context. It's the government, it's a few of the ministries, it's a metro company, it's also some city developers that are privately owned. So just mapping the kind of decision making setup of this project has been quite a challenge. So what we do here is we have been, this Lynetteholm was 5 years ago. At that time, was it 5 years ago or was it more, maybe 6? The prime minister at that time, who was liberal, and at that time Lord Mayor of Copenhagen, who is a social democrat, they made a bargain. So they met, I imagine they met like for a beer, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna build this island, okay, then you get a metro. So they made a deal on the development of Copenhagen, and none of them engaged their own political parties. None of them engaged the governments. None of them engaged the city councils. None of them basically engaged anyone. They made this agreement, and then they announced it. Does any one of you know that old fun, you know, that the kind of harsh steering model called the dad model? Do you know that? I really like it. But just slight feminism here, but no, sorry. But the dad model is the decide, announce, defend model. And this is a pure dad model thing. So and you would say that lots of the deliberative work is moving away from the dad modeling towards a steering model where you would say, that might be an idea. Let's have a conversation with someone about it. Let's co-decide. Let's co-announce. Let's co-defend. Let's change it a bit. You know, the more kind of organic, agile, involved leadership model is definitely not what has been happening here. And at least my eyes on this is that 10 years ago, and maybe even 5 years ago, I think what you could actually survive doing this in Copenhagen. It would be like, okay, that might be a kind of cool idea, and that's really leadership, political leadership. But I think the atmosphere in the broader public context, not just with kind of regular citizens, whoever is actually a regular citizen, I kind of hate that expression. I'm also a regular citizen. So all of us, is that we don't really want that any longer. It's like that feeling that someone is just deciding on something that's going to be very, very important for my city, not just today, not just tomorrow, but 50 and 100 years from now. someone should have asked me, what is actually my opinion on this? So even no matter actually what your views are on this project, there's a kind of a fight on that, hey, hello, this is also my city. So this project was therefore designed in different stages, and lots of the decisions are being made. And then we started, 4 years ago, we started pushing for an assembly on this, because we said this is a big, much too big project to let two old alpha male to do that decision on their own. And then 2 years ago, we managed to persuade this Byhavn company that we were actually going to do it. But the problem was, at that time, they had already been deciding things, and they had also been kind of building a very polarized Copenhagen conversation on this, where people has become really aggressive on it, for many really obvious reasons. So our balance here has been, should we do this? Are we going to democracy wash a really poor decision? If we don't do it, is anyone at all going to do anything if we don't do this? Is there a chance we can maybe affect and qualify the decision, or even maybe stop it? How can we do that and still be kind of a transparent, reliable democracy organizer? So it's been really heavy for us, this to also handle it as people, as private people also. How can we do this? I mean, I've stopped mentioning this at dinner parties, because otherwise all evening will be harassing on this. So the design until now is a stratified lottery. It's two-staged. We invite 10,000. We have already been inviting. What? Yeah.
Just to let you know that the overall Lynetteholm project is already decided by a big majority, both in Parliament and in the municipal government.
Yeah.
So while the public has a lot of hardcore debate, there's actually
the politicians agree.
Yeah. A strong majority.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the parliament basically voted for the law that would give the municipality the permission to start building this. But what hasn't been decided is what to build, what to do with the island, and it has not been decided what to do with the environmental investigation report on this that has just come out. So there's still kind of, maybe not a super clear, but there's still a window on what to do with this. You could say, like when you do a climate assembly, there's tons of stuff that has already been decided, but you can change laws. I mean, it's not more set in stone that you could actually go back and redo some of the decisions on this.
It's not on the table whether to fill it at all or not.
Explicitly in the commissioning part, we have been given no, but it will be on the table. Because you cannot ask a group of citizens, is this a good idea or no, a yes or no? Then they will come back with, then please shut the fuck down if they don't like it. But I'm not sure that's where it's going to end, to be honest. So, stratified lottery, two-stage. We've been sending out invitation on this e-box, this digital citizen platform. The criteria are gender, age, postal codes, and level of education. 75% has been invited from the municipality of Copenhagen, 25% from the neighbor, from the suburban municipalities that surround Copenhagen, like the part of the greater Copenhagen, because they will be deeply affected by this too. We're gonna do a two-staged, two-phased assembly, with two separate, like closed assemblies, and then opening up a new one to basically give place to evaluate the decision in the first one, and then open up for the working on the future and the second. We use all the OECD standards: full transparency, full documentation, observation, expert group, advisory board, observers, spokesperson that will be media trained, like the full-scaled kind of. This is more. There's the level of kind of democratic standards, and these are higher than on a new election in Moldova. I mean, it's really very tight. So the context is very polarized, very political, high level of complexity, and a lot of conflict. And at the same time, also really a question of an assembly that is not. You once gave me that expression, Eve. You said, "Don't make koala bear assemblies. Don't make assemblies where it's like cuddly, sweet recommendations. You want stuff that's actually important." This is really not a koala bear. This is a really important thing for the future of Copenhagen. This is the single most if this is going to be built, it will be the single most affecting thing for our economy in Copenhagen for the next 100 years. It will be the largest infrastructure project. So it will be extremely affecting on kind of all levels, on employment, on sustainability, on the population. The plan is that they want to build 35,000 houses there, homes on the island, apart from the rest of it. So it's really big. So what? Oh, that looks really strange coming from my computer to. But wow. Okay, that's nothing to do about it. So the facilitation of this is just pictures of parts of the kind of resistance on it. Lots of demonstrations, lots of campaigning, lots of. This is the technical environmental mayor. She got elected for the municipal elections by being against it, and now she's the organization that have to run it. So that's great fun. So there's lots of problem with the timing. There's lots of problem with the elephant in the room. How can we say, yes, there's a great resistance on this, but still we have to talk about this? How to be transparent on the data of this project, but not drowning them in papers, not drowning them in knowledge. So it means that they're just going to spend all their time trying to read up on the paperwork on this, but have spent time on their own thinking. Tons of things in this that is a more embedded cultural change, a new way of city leadership. And then how can we build attention around this project? How can we make sure that people know what's happening and want to sign up for it without basically feeding the fire? Because when we start doing stuff on social media, we're getting hit hard. So we can't really communicate. So how to communicate without being, harassed? So that's parts of our facilitation dilemmas in a project like this. You can see this afterwards, but just to say, we haven't before tried to work with a two-staged assembly, which is also a more specific design. There's going to be one separate question for stage 1 and another question for step 2, and there's going to be decision making in between that will probably change the focus of stage 2. You don't want to see this. I just want to say that there is a mandate, that even though they are a publicly owned city developer, they still signed a mandate. So we've been trying to follow the standards of citizen assemblies in different contexts. So just gonna skip this. So the last I still have, yeah? But no, we're not that. We have tons of time. Still have some time for this. So what I wanted to say is, this is the setting. And if you have questions on that, please ask me too. I mean, I'm more than willing to answer that. So when I listen to you, Kelly, and by the way, we've been kind of just stealing whatever we could steal from Scotland Assembly, because they've been doing such a great work. So when I listen to that, I also kind of think, I guess some of you think, oh my God, that's a bit overwhelming, and where to start and how to go from that to where I am right now. And some of this is, and then some of this is, if you add on the polarized situation of the Lynetteholm case, is also adding kind of a very high level of conflict already before you enter the room. So how to kind of design for that, how to prepare for handling that. And lots of the solutions is not actually process facilitation, it's in the preparation, it's in the stakeholder handling, it's the mandating, it's the expert selection, it's all that kind of setting around the assembly that's actually solving the largest and the deepest of the problems in a case like this. We're gonna have the first assembly meeting in the Lynetteholm case in a month, and we have rooms for observers, and of course, not just for this, but for everything we do, please come join us, watch it if you want to. We will have someone busy student council translation, but there will be a chance to have a translation if you wanna participate. So feel free if that is of your interest. So this is I would say, when we start designing stuff and therefore also facilitating stuff like assemblies, there are some key dimensions that are always there that we work on, whether we do this or we work on something else. And I just wanted to show it to you because in a way it's actually extremely simple. It's about who's in the room. There's a difference between running an assembly with 24 people and 99. It makes quite a big difference. Do they know each other? Do they speak the same language? Are they from the same region? What is the age difference? Are they already, before they enter the room, conflicts, or is it a low conflict assembly? So just pay an interest to the people who's actually in the room. Where do they come from? Do they know the method already? Do they feel anxious, or are they, super curious? So, because we always call all citizens before they enter an assembly, so we know them. I mean, Senia has been talking to half of the people of the citizens in the assembly we run on sustainable consumption, so we know them. We know why they find this interesting, and some of them have an anxiety and want to bring their dog, and have problem with babysitting, and they're people, So actually pay an interest to the people that will enter the room. Then there's something around, where do you want to be? I mean, this room is nice, but it's actually a bit too small. I mean, you would like round tables are better, because then you can see everyone. You want space where you can put stuff on the wall. You need a bit of a breakout session thing. You need stuff for media. So make sure that your facility is actually also accommodating what you want to do. It does make quite a big difference if you're in a room with a bad acoustics, so your technical stuff doesn't work, or things like that. Then there's, of course, the process design. Do we start at 10 or 11 or 12? If people travel from the other part of the country, when can they be here? If they have been traveling for 3 hours, should they have breakfast? So kind of what's also just the route plan of the day you're gonna design? Make it good, make sure there's enough breaks. Is there fresh air and interventions and interaction? And then there's lots of methods around. If we want to, for example, produce a proposal, then what would be the process methods that would help us actually produce a proposal? So make sure that your purpose and your program design is actually that you basically have what you need. I mean, if you want to build a house, then you probably need more than a hammer. I mean, it's like, we've been shopping for the right process competences also. And then there's a lot of design that's a before, during, and after design. A lot of work is done before people arrive. For example, we did an assembly on the future of a municipality where they wanted to increase the amount of citizens living in the assembly with 10,000 people. So, and without kind of basically breaking the community, the belonging of the community. So we asked them to, before they came, to take pictures of the parts of the village they lived in or the community they were a part of that they really wanted to take with them into a future. So they came with pictures of playgrounds and community meetings and coffee shops and pedestrian streets and whatever that was a kind of a part of this is what we're not going to throw out wall, and try to kind of bring that into the future we were working in. So preparing things before people arrive is also a very important part of onboarding. Lots of during, of course, good facilitation, and then there's just as much after work. I mean, the finding a way to how to document, how to make it accessible, how to upload videos, how to do the resumes in a way where people can remember what happened, and that they can see, oh, that was my group, we did that idea. Can I find that when I see the resume? So lots of afterward. You can easily think, oh, that just I would say if you have a citizen assembly with 2 weekends, which is like 4 days of facilitation work, then you can add on at least 3 times as much preparation and after work. So it's the amount of work that is put into really making a good program and handling the speakers and handling the logistics and the other end of it, documenting it, is much bigger than what's in the assembly work actually. Good. So you guys are facilitators. I'm not going to really dive into this, but still, I think there is a very interesting shift in and a complexity in driving, facilitating an assembly, because on one hand, you know that this is fact-based, it's evidence-based, it's serious. We do this on the ground of knowing something. And at the same time, you very much want the everyday expertise in the room. You want someone to feel appreciated and invited and clever, and you want them to see your face, that when you nod, when they say something, so they're gonna be encouraged to say more. So the balancing of creating a really very inclusive and inviting room for a broad majority of people. I mean, like you said, Kelly, there was people in the room that had never been on the internet. I had people in my room that had never participated in a meeting. So not ever participating in a meeting. So how does a meeting look? What is a table facilitator? What is that paper looking there? Where can I put my coffee? So it's just the infrastructure of group work is sometimes something. So you really have to train your facilitator mindship, which is kind of, the group is who the group are. We accept where they come from, and we make sure that everyone can be equally participating no matter where they come from. So this is a model we sometimes also talk to the citizens about. So if this is the first assembly meeting, it's rather obvious that if you are 66 citizens in the room, you cannot start the first meeting by saying, so how would you like to work? I mean, some of them have never been to a meeting. You can't really do the program planning or the expert briefing on the fly. You have to, before they enter the room, you have been preparing something. So the influence you have, the power you have over the process as a facilitator and designer is huge in the beginning. And then the basically model is to try to make that smaller and smaller during the time, because the citizens throughout the process both will increase their level of capacity to design and make their own decisions, but basically also to make it very explicit for them. For example, so next time we're gonna have this meeting with this purpose and this agenda. What are the key questions for you? What are stuff you really want answered? What are the things you really, what kind of experts would be helpful for you to be able to answer this question? And then they come up with new things, or they say, we want more breaks, and couldn't we start an hour later? Or I very much like the group I was in last time. Can I be with them? And you know, they actually start influencing what's happening, and also therefore co-stewarding kind of the process. And you never ever really let go of it as a facilitator, but you try to increase the amount of decisions made by the group itself. So they end up, you know, in the other end of this travel thinking, that was my assembly. You know, I was also steering this thing. And at least in my experience, the problem with huge Rolls-Royce models like the Scottish Climate Assembly is becoming like a very big, very professional, very, sorry to say, tight-ass thing. That means that for the regular citizens, it's going to be very difficult for them to affect what's happening. So there's also something in the little less kind of super pro thing where it's a bit like, oh yeah, okay, what's we going to do here? So where there's a little more room for someone to take over or suggest something, because it's not smooth conference atmosphere. So what are the elements we work with? It's always driven by the needs of citizens. It's very, very, very inclusive, result-oriented facilitation, which means everyone will have a room there, but we always try to kind of search for the end goals. Deep deliberation and moderation of opinions, like the example I gave you before at the end of Kelly's speech on the kind of on the trying to find solutions we actually agree on. Knowledge and fact-based, lots of capacity building. The participants we have, the citizens we have participating in this are always more active after. It's like they train their democracy muscles. It's they always want to be more participating more afterwards. And I think that in itself is a very, yeah, at least for me, a very, very important thing. I very much kind of want to think that every citizen in my room, when they leave the room, they want to be engaging more. They want to be encouraged to take more part in what's happening. Lots of stakeholders and experts contributing, but they're not in charge. Lots of group work and table facilitators, lots of documentation and group recording. And I have one last thing, Yves, and then I'll shut up. So this looks like shit, but just to show you, I mean, it's when we start working, this is how it looks. You know, lots of big posters on the table with the Post-its, lots of messy tables where people move around and vote. Like this is a more kind of handmade voting system with little dots, you know, on a wall where you can color code it, and then you can add your dots, and then you count, so 3 dots on each subject. And so dot voting, if you want to do something which is a little less digital, then sometimes it's actually nice to put the posters in the room and then make dot voting. Lots of visuals, trying to use, if you say, could you with words describe your future, then for some that would be really nice, but for others, using pictures or using other things would be a way to try to formulate and express and visualize your vision. So tons of kind of prepared group supporting material. Yeah, so from me to you, steal, copy, borrow, do not invent anything. I mean, at least run 3 assemblies before you start inventing anything. Just bloody steal it. Because the thing is, I mean, there are people in the world that has been doing this 60 times, and they have been kind of like, really kind of refining shit. So it just, don't invent anything, just steal. And then when you've been doing it once, twice, then start inventing stuff. But don't start by inventing, just don't start by thinking, yeah, but we can do it much better in Estonia. You can't. So just steal it, Bring in skilled facilitators. I'm sorry, not scholars that have theoretical thinking on this, people on the ground. Find yourself a mentor who can guide and advise you on all levels. I mean, someone you can really lean on. The devil is in the detail. Don't think, yeah, we'll see what material we need when we're there. Nah, just be very prepared on the kind of make a food package and a water, and make sure that you have what you need. Make sure to have fun. No one will die. I mean, it's good to have a laugh, and it's good to say, "Oops, I'm the one who did a mistake here." And so make sure it's a room where we test and try and learn and speak. And if you as a facilitator is completely like, then there's no room for anyone else to make any mistakes. So make sure you laugh. And when Sina and I are, for example, right now we are facilitating together, lots of it is about teasing each other. And Senior is constantly harassing me because I'm not on time. And so it's a part of also making, this is also a room where we can be together. Make it look, smell, feel good. Atmosphere is king. Make sure you feel welcome. It's all about people. It's all about people, all about people. If you ever have any kind of doubt, it's all about people. Really, fuck plans. It's all about people. Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Kill your darlings, but don't ever, ever let go of the process. Make sure you are the one guiding it. But if you are along the way, see this is not going to work for this group, throw it out. So that was it.